What's up, everybody? This is Josh Lyles, founder over at Sales-CRM. Today, I am joined by the great John Rivers. John, how are we doing today?
Dude, I'm so good. So happy to be here.
Man, I'm excited for this one.
Me too.
Just a small plug for John. I've been working with John on a consulting basis. John is my consultant for the past month, and so we even got to talk in this past week, over the past couple weeks, after getting to meet for the first time in person in San Antonio. About recording some content. And I was like, man, we have to. We've got to get some of this recorded and get you connected with some more people in the audience because you can help out a lot more people like myself. So
I
I'm
appreciate
excited
it.
for this one, man.
That's super kind. Thank you.
Just to get us started, let's go with the loaded question here. Who are you? What do you do?
Oh boy. Yeah, that I'm gonna get through it as quickly as I can. So I got really fortunate, honestly, Josh. I got to start at Coyote Logistics. I still think it's one of the best freight brokerages that have ever existed. Just recently got scooped up by RXO because they saw the value in it. I got in an 8 year span at Coyote, I got a ton of experience that a kid in his 20s should not have gotten. But because we were this wildly dynamic, diverse, constantly growing company, I just kept getting to get exposure to things that I really had no business getting exposure to. I had unbelievable leaders, people to learn from, have done every job in a brokerage that you can do. I started on the carrier side, then I went to the ops side, then I went to the sales side. But what I really fell in love with is the leadership side of this business. The people in this space are unmatched when it comes to diversity, quality, kindness, interesting. There's just everyone from every background is in our space. And that's what I really got passionate about. UPS bought the business. I did a special project for a year in Virginia for them. And then I got to go. Andrew Silver decided to move back to Chicago. So I got to move out to Denver and help grow that office. I then left for a chief commercial job at a company called Zengistics that was a brokerage owned by Turbo, the TMS platform. Uh, Learned a lot about the boards and the VC money and all that kind of stuff in that kind of tech space for the first time. And then I realized that if I was going to make this my career, I had to learn about the asset side of the business. So I went and took a chief growth officer role at Gulf Relay, based out of Jackson, Mississippi.
Just
Had
saw one of their trucks on the road yesterday.
Dude, they're so good looking. They're some of the best looking trucks out there. Doug does a good job with that. And honestly, that was a huge education because as a broker, all you ever hear is, "Oh, do you have assets? Do you have assets?" And
Right.
you get shut down when you're just a broker. So I wanted to see how that played. Really learned how to leverage those assets into brokerage opportunities. And then a group of my buddies started a brokerage down in Austin called Summit 11. I went down there and helped them grow towards the tail end of COVID, and that's kind of when the market crashed. We had a lot of momentum going into it, but then just rates got really tight and all the different things. And personally, I got kind of burnt out of being the revenue guy. So
Mm.
I took some time off and I went into consulting. And I wish I had a cooler strategy than what I had, but I basically just called my 5 best friends in the industry and I said, "Hey, what problems are you dealing with right now, and how can I help you fix them?" Um, then one of those awesome clients was a company called Logistics Group International. I worked there for about a year. I just left a couple weeks ago, and basically got to go work with an incredible owner and an incredible team, and show them that growth is possible even in a tight market. We grew volume by 40% because of how awesome the team was. That was the whole reason I signed up for the gig. I said I was never going to go back to brokerage, but I just fell in love with that team. And now what I've really realized that I like the most is helping organizations with a multitude of different facets of their business and give them the experience, the exposure, all the things that I've gotten to do in my career. I get to kind of give them the pros and cons of every direction they're thinking about taking their company.
So it's a great backstory, a really good experience, obviously, where you can help out a ton of people on the consulting side.
Very fortunate.
What are the like? There's a lot of aspects to consulting, and there's a lot of
Yeah.
facets of brokerage. You and I have talked about this. Tell me a little bit about those, right? Like you've got sales, you've got operations, you've got recruiting and hiring, you've got tech. There's more than that. There's the financial piece, which I know that you're big on and feel is slept on a good bit in this industry. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I think there's, everything comes from the top down, right? So who's the leader of the business and are people willing to follow them into the fire, right? That's a big part of what I do: leadership training, coaching. Um, I have a psychology degree, so I love the people side of our business. I love applying those principles to the business. Um, I would say, honestly, you covered the major aspects of brokerage that I can touch on. I would say that right now I'm seeing our market, that what I've always kind of thought was the level market, I'm seeing it start to change in some areas. I think people are finally going through rough year after rough year and realizing things like their finances are super important. Your DSO is super important. How quick you're invoicing, how quick you're getting paid, your cash situation, all of those things, those all kind of dictate what and where you can take your company to and the time frame that you can do that in. And so just kind of helping people slow down a little bit and say, hey, you say you want $100 million company. Why? What's the goal? What are you trying to do? Why do you want that? And kind of work back from there of, hey, what do you want? And then what do you think you're missing? And then, yeah, a big part of my career has been on the sales side of things. So a ton of sales training. I do mocks with a bunch of salespeople. Well, they'll call me and try to sell to me, and I'll give them really hard rebuttals, and let them stumble over themselves a little bit. I did so
Mhm.
many of those for my team, and what I saw it do is kind of break down that fear for when a shipper actually does pick up the phone and say, "Yeah, man, what do you want? Why'd you call?" That part of it, I think a lot of people, if they're not prepared well, they just get kind of surprised by that. So I like helping people through that part of it. And then also, what I got an enormous amount of exposure to at LGI was the technology that's coming into our space. I think we have now an industry where if you're not a creator, and what I mean by a creator is if you're not able to create relationships with shippers or with carriers, or you're not able to foster a relationship or start a relationship out of thin blue, you really are going to get replaced in this industry, I feel like, because the tech is coming out and it's coming out so much better than it used to. And it's coming off the shelf and something that people can plug and play into most major TMSs and really reduce the amount of remedial tasks that their team has to do. How we framed it at LGI is I just want our company to double. I just don't want to hire another person to do it. And that means more money for the employees, more commission incentives for the employees. It means a lot more time fostering and growing relationships and not bogged down in the weeds with all the remedial tasks that comes with scheduling a restaurant depot load.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So I want to dive into those aspects a little bit more,
Cool.
but from your experience consulting and then obviously working in the space,
Mhm.
number of different companies and whatnot, what is what out of all of them, what's the number one that people struggle with most?
Overall, as broad average, I would say the problem is direction. So many
And
companies in our space just want to grow for growth's sake, but they can't tell me why they want to grow or the time frame they're putting on themselves to do so. I think that there was an enormous amount of money that came into our space over the last 5 years. But I think people are starting to realize that having a bootstrapped business, that you don't have a board to answer to, you don't have a bunch of investors to answer to, you can really take care of the people. And a part of this conversation I'd love to go into is the agent model that I also got exposure to at LGI. The only thing that matters in this space is the people you have on your team. And I think instead of looking at the people try to hire sales reps just for their book of business and not
mhm.
really look at how are they going to fit into what I'm building. And I think a lot of people just look at the money grabs that there are to make with top tier talent in this space. And they're not giving them the full playbook of, hey, this is why I want you to come here. This is what I want you to do. And here's why we're growing what we're growing. What Marianne and Jeff did better than anyone at Coyote is always made the company feel like we knew where we were going and we knew how we were going to get there and what our level of contribution was expected from us. And that just galvanizes teams and gets people really fired up. And I think it's completely overlooked in our business, to be honest with you. I think the human element of our business is the number one most important part. And I think it is not something flashy or sexy that shows up on a P&L every month, but finding and attracting and keeping top tier talent is really the number one focus of most of my conversations.
Is that something that you find most companies need somebody solely dedicated for in-house internally, or should that be the CEO's number one responsibility? Like how I guess have you seen people structuring that? You've brought up Jeff and Marianne in previous conversations. I've never had the chance to meet them, but on the HR side, people side, culture side, I've heard raving things about Marianne. So
Oh, she's
also love to know top things that you learned from both her and Jeff individually, but
for sure.
um I mean, even maybe just to simplify my question, like from a people side, like what's one of the smallest tweaks that, let's just say, like one small tweak that you feel people can make that they could do better to either serve or even bring in the right people? What's one of the things on the consulting side that you've advised on or feel, could help people out?
Yeah. That's a really good question. I would say, honestly, if I had to pick one thing, I would say just sitting with their employees and having regular cadences with them.
Yeah.
I always used to have reviews with the team, and I would always start off the review with, "Hey, how's Josh doing?" Not as a freight broker, not as a sales rep, not as a carrier rep, not as all that, but who are you as a person when you leave here? What are you doing? Why are you at this job? Is this your career? Is this just something
Yeah.
that you're trying to figure out if you want to stay into? What are your goals? How much money do you want to make this year? Why do you want to make that amount of money? Why is your goal your goal? And then kind of work from there to show them that whatever their goals are, you can really correlate them back to how they can get there in your business, but you have to have the conversation first. And I
Hmm.
think a lot of people think, well, I'm going to find a really good sales rep, pay him a bunch of money, plop them in the seat, and I'm just going to let them go do their thing. That's true to an extent, but you also have to be on the same page and you have to be in lockstep with your team. Because if you have a sales floor that's all complacent and making the amount of money that they want to make, but you say you want to grow by 25%, what's your plan there? How are you going to do that? Because unless you bring in new talent or have that sales team find a third gear, you're not going to be able to get there. And you're going to be really frustrated in the middle of the year when you realize you're not on that growth trajectory.
It's a great point, man. I think because brokerage, it's so easy to be looking at the spreadsheets, obviously, of all the results, right? Revenue, profit, margin, load count, all that stuff. So it's really easy to just, may sound stupid, but to just like visualize the person as that versus remembering, hey, they are a person, right? There's a lot of stuff going on, and brokerage is a very stressful job.
Yeah,
Um, you have to be a unique kind of individual to succeed in it.
you really
And
do.
yeah, that's a really good point that I think can be
This is
forgotten.
this is a space where the CH Robinsons, the Coyotes, the TQLs, they were body shops, right? We had to hire tons of people because we needed this rampant hockey stick curve. Most companies don't have the access to the funds and relationships and connections that those big companies do. So I think that a lot of the noise on LinkedIn and online looking at all these different companies compare themselves to that, but they don't know what the financial situation was of Coyote and Warburg Pincus before growing a company that rapidly in that market. They have to realize, hey, am I going to bootstrap this? Do I have a couple of investors? What do those people need out of the business? And then what
Hmm.
am I going to be able to translate that into with my team? And I think that's the part where a lot of people just don't have the conversation. I would say that there's also just, I feel like at times in a lot of the businesses I've worked in or have consulted for, there's almost like this gate up around the C suite where they're constantly working on things, doing stuff, but they're not drawing their team into those.
Hmm.
I always found it really fun to just bring in a random employee to a meeting and say, hey, someone who's in our APAR department, why don't they come in and hear what our new sales commission plan is looking like? I want their 2 cents on it, right? Having people hear and know what's going on in the business in this world of like immediate knowledge where everyone's texting and emailing and no one calls and FaceTimes that much anymore. Everyone wants the same information very quickly. If you're able to kind of consolidate your thoughts and your growth path and then get buy-in from the team, the growth just happens. It's not something you have to drag a team along for. They're running with you at that point. And I think that was what Jeff and Marianne were really good at, is they wanted us to all be running in a pack. They wanted us to all feel like, hey, we all support each other. There is no wrong. We're just learning. All of those kinds of things where nowadays, and for a long time, you've seen, if sales it gets upset with operation gets upset with the rates that sales reps have. Carrier reps think that sales reps don't know how to quote freight. And it's really just a misalignment in communication. And I think a lot of times more drastic measures are taken when really a conversation would fix a lot of it.
Communication, I feel like it's the root of all problems.
Dude, everyone says it and it sounds so simple, but it is a beast in its own that needs daily attention.
And it's even the methods, right? If you think about so many brokerages these days, agencies, whatever it may be, I mean, how much communication just text and Slack and Teams versus having the actual conversation, because the one thing you can't, I guess, feel over that is the person's tone and what they're actually positioning and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, details can be missed. And
talking to a shipper, right? You got them on an email, so now you're going back and forth. Then you get them on a call, but then when it's damn near impossible to say no to you is when you go meet them.
Yeah.
Because when you sit across the table from someone, you can read their body language. You can see how they're responding to your answers. You can see the environment they work in. You can understand this person's not only managing the freight, they're managing the auditing, the bills, they're doing this, they're doing scheduling, they're making sure the forklift drivers are showing up. Show them how you can take a lot of that work from the execution of freight off their plate so they can focus on other things. Those things don't really become materialized until you kind of sit down with the person.
What would you, so I wanted to talk back, we're going to bounce a little bit all over the place here, so I apologize. And then I want to wrap, I want us to eventually transition the back half of this to let's save sales if we can. Yeah. But there's been a lot of interesting things that have been already brought up. But you mentioned, because I've heard this a lot before, and I feel like I see this a lot, where growth and people just saying, we want to grow from 10 to 20 or 20 to 50 or 50 to 100 or 500 to $1 billion and all this kind of stuff. And it does sometimes feel like this number is just thrown out in the air.
Yeah.
How do you try to help? And obviously, a nutshell, I know this isn't like the actual consulting conversation for these people, but
try to give you a broad range.
How do you help people actually break that down to actually get to, hey, this is probably, not to say like this is what's realistic, like you can't do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's so many different aspects that they're probably not thinking about, and it's probably just a random number that's what it gets thrown out there. How are you helping people actually break that down? If I was to say I want to get from 25 to 50, what are you asking me?
Yeah. So if you said you want to get from 25 to 50, it means you already have an established book. So I would look at that book and I would look at your sales team and say, evaluate the sales talent and say, hey, is Ryan at 50% of his capacity or 100% of his capacity? Because there's no easier and more cost-effective way to grow than to grow internally a customer that already exists. So you have to look at that. Is your sales team tapped out? Okay, well then do you have a huge pipeline of sales reps that you're going to work with? Do you have a great recruiter? Do you have a great recruiting process? How many people have you recruited in the last 6 months to 12 months? So I always start with the people. The ownership side of it, I always just ask a very simple question. Why do you want to grow that much? And do you know the financial implications of growing that much? And what I think a lot of people, because everyone's got different experiences of timing of their growth. So all the companies that grew during COVID, they got really bombastic and said, hey, I want to just keep soaring to the moon. And it's like, guys, rates aren't going to stay that way. And rates are not something that one company can dictate. So I think having them have a realistic conversation with themselves of, this is why I want to grow this big. This is what I want to offer my employees. This is why I think we can get there. That conversation is really important on the front end. And then also, what are they doing from a tech standpoint, from a customer standpoint? Are they mainly LTL? Are they reefer? Are they, all the different components that they could be moving by mode? All of those have a different growth trajectory in them. Um, what else? I would honestly say the other part of it too is how good is your sales leadership? A lot of these companies want to grow, but the owner usually owns the sales side of things. And the problem with that is that the owner has an emotional attachment to their business that no other employee in the company has. And if they don't take that into consideration and say, hey, the only one that's getting a payout when I go to sell this thing one day is me, that's not really the guy that everyone wants to rally behind and go fight for, right? They want to feel like you're in the saddle with them. You're there. You're on calls with them. You're challenging them. You're asking hard questions. You're constantly encouraging them. Those kinds of things have to be done on a daily basis to keep a team engaged and to grow that way. And if you don't have that person, I would never sign up for it.
Got more that we're going to get into on that. What's appealing to you about the agency side?
To be completely honest with you, Josh, I think it's the future. At LGI, we were able to triple the size of our agency in like 9 months. The reason why we were able to do that is I knew so many talented people in a W-2 space, but the amount of freight that they have to move, given their commission plan, albeit 10, 15% or wherever it's at in their company, for them to make what I would call life-changing money, they have to move so much freight. The bar is so high, right? They have to move hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of loads a month, right? The challenge is you could go and be an agent, keep your best 4 relationships, start 2 new customers a year, and make life-changing money. And I think, especially with our generation and the younger generations coming into this space, they're coming in and they want to be a founder. They want to be a business owner. They want to be that person that on LinkedIn, their title has like 47 different things they call themselves. You can do that as an agent. You fly under a flag, but it's really just like a franchise relationship, right? You own the business, but you fly under this flag. What I was able to really get blown back by last year was the amount of people that there's just a couple of hurdles to get them into the agency space. But once you do, they were the happiest they've ever been in their careers. They get to operate their freight the way they want to. We made sure that we always gave them nearshoring support if they wanted it. We gave them a really good tech stack. We made sure that as much as we possibly could, we got back to them immediately when they were having any kind of challenges. And I stayed very heavily involved in them. Very high touch, touched all of them every week. Wanted to hear how their book was going. What challenges do you have? Is everything going smooth internally? Okay, great. Ship shape. Talk to you next week. It's basically acquiring small businesses and rolling them up into your brokerage.
Okay, I've got questions on this.
Good.
Do you feel like most brokers are fit to be agents? And I guess I say that for this reason. Like, this is where I'm going with that question, and I'm asking honestly, not knowing the answer. To me, it's it is similar in an aspect to starting your own business, running your own shop. And I think while that's the dream for a lot of people can fall short just due to discipline and consistency and the challenges and all those things. Like for me, I feel like I can draw my parallel around like starting your own thing. A lot of people think, oh, it's gravy, especially like bootstrap, and let alone a tech company, and bootstrapping that is it's very hard and it's very challenging. And I risk, just pretty much everything. But you work a lot, sometimes more. And so I'm not saying that's going to be the case on the. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm saying when you own a business, you have to. You only eat what you kill, right?
Yeah.
So if you want to take a week off work, you can take a week off. No one's going to yell at you about your PTO, but who's going to move your freight that week? What processes and plans do you have in place to be able to continue the business? That's the kind of stuff where people They don't see the gaps. And yeah, it sounds fun. It sounds sexy to own your own business. Oh man, that's so cool. But
Yeah.
you're a small business owner yourself, man. It's all on you. It's all on your shoulders.
So with that, hypothetically, like percentage wise, if you were to say, okay, out of the freight brokers that you've worked with,
Mm-hmm.
what percentage of those would you say are fit based on like those some of those characteristics to be an agent? Do you think most could do it?
I think any brokerage can do it. I don't think a lot of brokerages are set up. I would say probably 30% of brokerages are set up where you could sell their tech stack, their process, their back office, their branding, their reputation in the market. You could sell it well enough to them that an agent would jump over tomorrow. I think a lot of them see it as a less valuable thing because when you go to get bought, usually an agent model is paid a lot less and a lot lower multiplier than an internal brokerage. And I think that's more because they see everyone as a 1099. You don't have everyone on your W 2 and you don't have all your non solicits and non competes and all that stuff. But really, what I've found is at the end of the day, a good salesperson owns the relationship with their customers, no matter where they are or where they bring their customer to. Because it's not about LGI's ability to execute, Coyote's ability to execute. It's about getting to work with that individual that was able to create a relationship. And it's basically saying to the really confident sales reps out there, hey, if you're that confident in it, bet on yourself and jump into this. And here's all the tools I'm going to give you to do it. I think there's a lot of companies that could be a lot better, a lot faster with some tech shifts and some risk shifts. I think a lot of them think it's risky. They're all 1099 employees, so they can just jump whenever they want. But at the end of the day, so can any W 2 sales rep,
Sure.
right? It's horse trading in our business. Everyone goes, they grow to a certain level, and then they either go management or they stay in sales and they continue to hone their craft. Well, those customers aren't going to just say, oh, I don't want to ever work with that guy again. They're just going to probably complain about doing the new onboarding paperwork. That's about it.
So let's transition to tech since you brought it up because I do
Yeah.
want to talk about that. And I know from, you and I's conversations that you definitely seem like old school broker. The tech has been, an adjustment and all that kind of
Well,
stuff.
huge.
Talk about the tech side a little bit and you've spoken a little bit obviously about the importance, but since you've been a
Sure.
little bit more on the consulting side,
Mhm.
how has your opinion of it changed?
Yeah. Well, it's on a bunch of different faces of the business. I would hone it into number one is the tech stack that you have doesn't mean anything unless you have someone internally that is your linchpin for all things tech. And what I mean by that is I had that person at LGI. Brandon was unbelievably adept at knowing what being a really successful broker was and then having a fascination with the tech side of this business. And what he was able to do is look at a piece of tech and understand what the broker is going to like and dislike about it. And then when we went to pitch it to our team to say, hey guys, we're bringing on this new piece of tech, we were able to frame it to the company. And it wasn't in a threatening way of like, hey, this is coming to book all the freight. You guys are going to have jobs. But we were able to go to them and say, hey guys, this is going to take all those remedial tasks off of you so that you can make more money next year in commission. And if you don't get fired up by that, something else is wrong, right? But if you don't have a Brandon, then it's very difficult to implement because there's a
Yeah.
lot of things that a lot of small brokerages don't have the ability to do. They don't know how to get API connected to McLeod. They don't know how to call Vuma up and ask Jesse if he can get them an API key. They don't even know to ask these kinds of questions.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, the tech is such a force multiplier, especially with agents. We had agents at LGI moving 200 loads a month totally by themselves because we had a tech stack that enabled them to do that. And without it, they wouldn't have been able to. So it sounds fun to have tech. It sounds great to have it. And there is some incredible technology coming out right now. And I've gotten to really look behind the curtain of that over the last 18 months and made some awesome friendships out of tech owners, yourself included, that are using tech to be a force multiplier. But just like, you and I have talked about this, Salesforce is great. If you're $1 billion company and you have a Salesforce admin at your company that is an expert in Salesforce, or else all you're doing is putting in tickets. Hey, this
Mm-hmm.
didn't work. This button doesn't work. This doesn't work. That's just a waste on everyone's time. You're taking revenue generating people and slowing them down from your tech. If you're able to have someone that owns it and doesn't have to ask all the remedial questions and just knows how to implement, you just have this very fluid process that people buy into more. It shows them an ROI quicker, and then they really buy into using the tech. I will say by the time I left, LGI was having about 30% of their freight covered from a tech platform and over 40% of our freight built by another tech platform. And that helped us grow. I mean, we grew volume by 40% year over year without adding a lot of bodies. And I think a big reason why we were able to do that is because we kind of packaged it up to them that, hey, this is what we're doing for you on the sidelines, but this is what it's going to mean for you personally on every level of the business. And I think it's that combination. Tech's great, good teamsmanship and culture is great, but if you don't put them together, they usually end up butting heads because it slows down a revenue generator from making more money. And if that's the case, then it's really hard to keep buying.
Where do you like to draw the line between the tech handling things and the broker, the agent still asserting themselves?
So I honestly, COVID killed outbound calling, in my opinion, right? I think that I remember averaging 150 calls when I was at Coyote a day, right? And that didn't seem like a lot to us because that was just the job.
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays, getting somebody to make 30 outbound calls in a day is a grind. And personally, I think that's ludicrous. Now, if you are that person that doesn't want to make that outbound call, that doesn't want to be a creator, there's just too good of technology out there now that will replace you. If all you're doing is taking inbounds and just putting in, oh yeah, somebody offered me this, somebody offered me this, how easy is that to replace with tech? It's already here and it's already working really, really well thousands of times a day. The other side of it is it kind of allows you to say, okay, if we have this piece of technology, let's sit with our people more. Let's make them better at the conversations. Let's empower them with better questions to ask. Those kinds of things are interesting, right? Because then the rep that's booking 20 loads a day starts booking 30, 40, 50 loads a day. The challenge ultimately comes down in the tech space is, do you have someone to own it? And is the tech solving non-creation problems? And what I mean by creation is there should always be people in your business talking to shippers. There should always be people in your business talking to carriers, because great carrier sales and great carrier relationships help any sales organization, and great sales and great positioning helps any carrier, right? So the big thing that I see out there, the check calls, appointment scheduling. I mean, I wasn't joking about Restaurant Depot. Loved their freight, but it was multi-pick, multi-drop. There was hours a week in our business where someone was just sitting on hold waiting for an appointment for a third drop, right? Those kind of tasks being peeled back and taken out of the people's hand, I think that is table stakes now. Where I don't like it is I wouldn't want them to do any kind of creation role. I wouldn't want them calling a shipper and representing my company yet, because I don't think we're there yet. I also think that humans buy from humans they like. And that piece of it, I don't know that you could ever really replicate. So I would say any of the remedial tasks, taking inbounds, logging offers, building loads, scheduling appointments, all of those things, I say automate it all.
On the carrier relationship side, this is talked about a lot and the R word is thrown out a ton. And this feels like it's being automated a lot. And I've seen, carriers post frustration, obviously, of having to talk to bots and all those things.
Yep.
where does the broker and agent still stay? Like, where are they building that relationship, right? I guess like, and I'm asking more so, okay, cool. You want certain things automated,
Mm-hmm.
on just like offers, bids, or vetting, or whatever it may be, right? Check calls, appointments, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Where is the best area to be asserting yourself from a relationship standpoint to build the best relationships with carriers?
So I think there's a fundamental misunderstanding of what a broker is to a carrier. Jonathan Sisler told me this in the kitchen at Coyote, like my third or fourth year. He said, a carrier likes us for two reasons. We can send them anywhere and we're going to pay them in 2 days. We are, as a broker, the marketing arm for all the small mom and pop carriers out there. I think it's, something like 70% of carriers have less than 10 trucks, right? So somebody that only has a 10 truck outfit has such a small market to be appealing to. But when you have a broker with $100 million of revenue and a ton of relationships, if you have the right conversation with them, you can put them on freight that you never have to think about again, because you can set clear expectations. You can walk them through the opportunity. You can tell them what the shipper cares about. You can tell them the challenges of the deliveries. But if you don't create and foster those relationships, it's no different than the shipper side.
Mm-hmm.
Because every time a customer then gives you a load, if you're just putting it on whatever carrier has the right rate at the right time, there's going to be no consistency in your performance. And that's going to get called out now in a market like this way faster than it ever has been.
If you were hiring, let's just maybe go W-2 here, because this would probably make more sense in this aspect.
Sure.
But, a class of kids, one or two kids fresh out of college, they don't know what a reefer is, they don't know what a drive-in is. What's the main thing that you're coaching them on, telling them about to get them set up for success? You've been through, obviously, all areas of the business and whatnot. What are you doing for the kid that's fresh out, doesn't know anything about freight, to get them started up?
Honestly, it's just paying attention to their work. I think the biggest thing that gets lost is no one's born knowing how to broker freight, right? You get taught it by a bunch of an amalgamation of people that come in through your life and your career. I think someone that's fresh out of college, the first thing I would look at is their call numbers, their activity. What kind of questions are they asking? Are they pushing back? Are they challenging norms? Because if they're not, this isn't a profession that you could come into lightly. Like if this is just a job to you, you're not going to make it. If it's you've made the decision, it's your career. There's so many different ways you can take your career in this space. But if you're thinking in the short term, I think my goal would be to try to burn them out as fast as I could. I would keep challenging them, keep upping their call numbers, keep evaluating their level of calls, spending weekly attention with them and reviewing calls. Hey, carrier asked you this and you responded this way. Why did you say what you said? Were you just caught off guard, or do you need training around this? That conversation, it's just few and far between nowadays, because at the end of the day, the only person that can have that conversation is a leader in the business or a mentor or someone else around that person. But then the flip side becomes, well, those leaders are really expensive. You're paying a manager, and what I would want my managers doing is focus on generating more revenue for the team. But it really comes from working on that ground foundational level with them to say, hey, let's go through 5 calls a week. Let's challenge ourselves. Let's all sit in together as a sales team and do mock sales calls. And let's see the guy that we think is the best in the office. Let's see him get tripped up a little bit and realize he's human too. That kind of stuff is really what gets you buy-in. And then also, I will say this is a John Rivers thing. I genuinely just cared about people's careers more than I cared about mine. Because I always knew that no matter what team I was leading, if I made all of them the best form of themselves, I'm going to succeed no matter what.
All comes
So
back.
I try to lead from that level of saying, hey, we're all just humans trying to move freight from point A to point B. The little things, the little trainings, the little guidances you can give, they're just huge and they're really important. I will also say Coyote did an unbelievable job training people. Um, but again, that only happens where you hire a rep and you put them in school for a month. That only
Yeah.
happens if you have a ton of money and you don't need that rep to be net accretive to a business soon.
So I'm smiling and laughing here because the one thing to me that's pretty funny about this is you're constantly saying calls. And
Yeah,
if I'm being candid here, I feel like when most brokerages and agencies we talk to about Sales Dash, from a CRM prospecting aspect,
sure.
emails are
The
the
feeling.
constant thing brought up. Why
Yep.
are you emphasizing calls over emails?
Um, well, number one, it's how I learned the business. I remember the days of sitting up in Lake Forest and watching Brian Brenner bang out sales calls all day long and get rejected and get turned down and get rebuttals and get all these things. And I got the experience of getting to hear all of those peers around me have those conversations. Some of the best salespeople you've ever seen in this industry worked at Coyote, and I got to hear their pitch. I got to hear how they overcame objections. I got to slide over to their desk and say, "Hey, man, what did the customer say to you that made you say this?" Now, email has again given me another reason why I think agencies are the future is because people aren't doing that anymore. People are sitting at their desks with their AirPods in, they're hanging out, listening to their music, and they're trying to bang out as much work as they can in a 10-hour day, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if that's all you're doing, there's no group benefit at that point, right? It's just all kind of siloed by person. So I realize that email is the easiest way. I realize that it's effective, very effective in the business. But I don't think a relationship with a shipper or a carrier actually becomes real until you get into a fight with them or until something goes wrong. It's kind of like your spouse, right? Like I'm married.
Yeah.
My wife and I didn't fight in the beginning. Then we got into our first fight. I'm like, oh my God, I love fighting with her. That's great. Customer relationship you want, right? You want to work with your carriers. Everybody's been doing this long enough to know that shit's going to go wrong, but there is no way to project empathy via the written word. You can say all the things in the world, but calling up a shipper and saying, "Hey, I messed up. I'm going to be late to pick up this load. Here's what I'm doing to rectify it on our end. Here's what I'm doing to make sure it doesn't happen again." Honestly, people are taken back by it. So like, what the, what are they, why are they doing that?
So you've got to, you've probably worked with some of the best sales reps, I would say, in the industry. Obviously, if you worked at Coyote and you've name dropped some big names on here, what are some of the common traits that you've noticed from those people that made them some of the best sales reps?
Persistence. I think one of the most effective things I learned is a guy named Spence Manthe. I met him at Coyote, worked with him at a couple other companies after we left Coyote. And what I learned from him that I take into every business I talk to is sales dash. I would go and I would sit down with the rep and I would say, Coca-Cola is in your name. Tell me why. Well, it's Coca-Cola. They have freight. Cool. What do you know about Coca-Cola? Do you deliver to any of their facilities? Do you have an in? Do you know somebody there? Do you have a previous relationship? Because if you don't have any of those things, that's coming out of your name right now. You're not able to, we're not going to allow you to spend that time because you have to ask those push questions. And a push question of challenging a sales rep to say, "Hey, why are you doing X, Y, or Z?" It forces them to take a step back and look at it and go, "Oh, dude, you're right. I mean, they're a massive company. They're going to be price driven. We're a small shop. I'm not going to be able to handle their volume. I should go into this side of the market." I think a lot of people just get hung up with name brands and they think landing that next big logo is going to be interesting. But I
Mm,
can tell you concretely the most profitable, best relationships in customers I've ever seen in brokerage are companies I've never heard the name of. They are unknown to me for the most part. And then I hear them and
yeah.
see their business and understand it better and have conversations with them. And I'm like, wow, what a space to be in. But the majority of the big names out there, you're not going to really compete from a price standpoint. And They have other things going on. They have a massive procurement. It's going to take you 6 to 12 months to get onboarded. They're going to have a contract that's going to bog your business down. They have all these things that are roadblocks. So I think that there is a very large space to just challenge what's in your sales dash.
It's a good point because I mean, now you're making me reflect on my time in brokerage and the better customers. I mean, yeah, I didn't really know,
Yeah,
honestly, like who they were, never heard their names,
yeah.
cities that they were in were very,
They're
very
not name
random.
brand. They're not
So,
a household name. None of
yep.
them.
Which is
Yeah,
also kind of a benefit to the broker, right? Because this is
1,000%.
this is also one of those things where I won't get into this like too much, but I mean, let's just be honest, but like a lot of brokers use Zoom Info. So to me, it's kind of one of those things where, hey, if that's the only lead gen tool that you use, you're fishing from the same pond. And there's tons that are out there, right? And so, being able to have a refresher of that stuff, I think is important. But again, like if you're only in that one system and everybody else is playing in it, guess what? Like your competition's raised where there are some out there, of course, on Google, the grocery store labels and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I definitely don't think that can be underestimated. Um,
It's true.
Talk to me about make deposits. You brought that phrase up to me on our last call, and it stuck out to me.
Yeah,
Explain that to the audience
sure.
as a salesperson.
So I think one of the core fundamental things that gets messed up is and I'm going to just talk sales rep to brokerage and brokerage owner to sales rep. So a sales rep wants the moon, right? A good one wants the moon, right? Because they recognize their talent, they recognize their skill set, they recognize their value in an enterprise. The challenge with it is that when the owner goes to sell that business, he's the only one that's going to participate in the exit, right? Not the sales rep that's giving him the business to sell, right? So I think when you come into an organization, I see so many people come in and then say, like, give me, give me, give me. And I hate that mentality because, in my opinion, the first 6 months of a job, you should literally have the focus of, I want everybody around me, including the leadership team, to say, holy shit, how do we find 10 more of that guy? And that only comes by making deposits, staying late, making the calls, never taking no for an answer, being persistent, being prepared, going into sales calls really prepared, going into your reviews really well prepared, taking on the coaching that you're given. You have to take on all those things and really give deposits to the company, because once you prove to a company that you can, the rest is just whatever you want it to be. But I see so many reps come and say, no, I want more commission, or I want a higher salary. I want this. If you're able to create revenue, you can ask for any amount of money you want. So just come
Yeah.
in and create. The other side of it is I think owners think, okay, all the work is done once I bring them into the business. Okay. That is when the work starts. It is not when the work is done. Recruiting was a full-time job as a CEO for me. I was constantly talking to talent, constantly talking to hiring companies. But the biggest thing I did is I thought to myself, who's the people I want to work with and that I want to make deposits in? Because I knew if I was interviewing you and I knew I wanted to help you become successful, I knew I would make sure you were at the company. And if I wasn't, I would be the first one to help you get on to the next gig. But I think that part of it, owners and leaders have to make deposits in their people in a consistent, persistent way. Because if they don't, they're going to just see them coming up to the sales rep and putting in their ATM card and taking cash out. And there's no deposits being made of it. And that is what leads to disenfranchisement and ultimately leads to great talent looking for another job.
I think something aligned with that, or at least a phrase that's really stuck out to me, and I feel like at this point now I've fully adopted it, but is delayed gratification.
Oh,
Um, like from selling cars at Tesla to, managing reps there and then getting into brokerage in particular, I would say definitely with brokerage,
mm-hmm.
the whole concept of delayed gratification is just like so many people expect and want the things now. And I will say from one of the better sales reps that I had the fortune to kind of, to manage, coach, and, be on the team
Sure.
with was they were, they were so kind of like big on, hey, if they were to open the door for you, not saying that this is the case all the time, right? Like there's always special cases.
Yeah.
But if they were to open the door for you day one, week one, all that kind of stuff, it's probably just as easy for them to let the next guy or the next girl in just that fast. And as fast as you get it, fast as it may be to lose it.
Mhm.
And, with delayed gratification, basically saying like, hey, my timeline is very far back. If this happens 6, 9, 12 months down, 18 months down, I'm good. Right. And I think that really plays into pipeline management, and it's been really crucial, I would say, for us with Sales Dash of like, can't get excited about certain conversations and whatnot. Like it's just basically stacking those up. And then
Mhm.
eventually you can find yourself in a really good spot as time goes on. But from, I think, my experience in management, you get so many of these reps where they just lean on the one opportunity in the pipeline and they think that, okay, once that turns on or once that closes, everything changes, right? The Coca-Cola or whoever it may be.
Such a good point. Such a good point, dude. The perfect brokerage book of business, in my opinion, is 10 customers that give you 10 loads a day. You're not over
And
leveraged. And I have yet to see a sales rep outside of $1 billion shop be able to do it.
would you say most have 1, 2 customers that are holding up 80% plus, or?
100%. I would say most brokerages have 5 or less customers making up more than 60% of their revenue. And
Yeah,
if that's where your business is situated, that's okay. A lot of companies operate that way, but you have to realize how vulnerable you are.
big
You
time.
have to realize how important it is to get more people on the front side selling your business, because from my experience, brokers lose between 12 and 18% of revenue year over year. Other companies get bought out, decision makers leave or change jobs, the rates go down, whatever it may be. So if you say you want to grow by 10%, you really need to grow by like 22% to do that. And if you don't think of it that way and constantly churning in new customers, but then again, that's really cost intensive if you're not going through their sales dash and saying, tell me why you're calling this customer. Tell me why this customer gets your time today. What do you think you're going to get? What's your angle into that account? And if they don't have a good plan, they should not be calling them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think all of that is way more tied together than people think, but it's just not talked about enough. That's actually a big reason why I love being in logistics and love being back in the consulting seat, man. I just love to help companies and I like to help people. So I'm not going to tell you you're wrong. I'm going to just tell you where the pots are in the road and say, hey, man, I would veer left of that one, because if you don't, it's going to really hurt. Those kinds of things, it just comes from having open and honest dialogue with people.
Mm-hmm.
And there's not a lot of resources out there right now for the overall brokerage market to reach out to a company and say, hey, are we doing the right things? Can you look at our sales and our ops
Yeah.
and our customer mix and what we're doing on the sales end and just, are we doing the right stuff tactfully, strategically? Are we doing it? And if we aren't, where do we need to shift? And then I just give them some guidance and they go and do the work. I think that's a big part of this, where I can kind of be a barometer for how the business is running and give you an objective point of view to tell you what's good and bad.
Yeah, it's got to be so fun too, because I mean,
It's
there
the
are
best.
there are a lot of people that are very just kind of tunnel narrow-minded, I think, when it comes to sales in this industry. But I think with what you're saying there, one of the biggest underestimated things is the time management and efficiency piece of a rep, of actually understanding, okay, like, are you calling on the right customers? Because to me, there's been a couple of examples. So one where I was doing an on-site visit with a customer, they're the rep that closed the most new business was just like, look, I closed the most amount of shippers last year, but I didn't close the right ones.
Yeah.
And, so it's something as specific as that. And then I was listening to a podcast with the president of one of the more prominent brokerages that was out there. And he talked about how many customers that they had onboarded last year, but really how many of them only moved one shipment, So even from that aspect. So then there's like the follow-up piece of it. It's the follow-up piece. And then, were they even the right customers and situations? And I mean, really, the main thing he kept pointing to was just primarily the follow-ups.
Quality.
But that's the thing that I kind of find so fascinating, with this industry and how a rep does approach their business, because like you are your own business owner. Whether I don't care if you're labeled as a sales rep or a freight broker or a freight agent, like when you're going after shippers and whatnot, and you're trying to build your book of business, like it's your business. You
Mhm.
get to choose how you spend your time and your energy and the efforts that you give. And of course, like you should want those to what's going to basically benefit you and customers the most,
Mhm.
right? And like your plan of attack, I think, just like sports, and like how you'd approach offense and defense and all those kinds of things. And so many people are just dialing or they're just emailing and they
Yeah.
don't really actually think about all the stuff that goes into it. And yeah, I don't know. That's pretty interesting with some of those examples that you brought up, because it's giving me flashbacks on all that stuff, but also just, from the customers
So
and
true.
prospects that we talk with on a daily basis.
It's so true. And that's another facet that's not really talked about a ton is starting a new customer. Everyone goes and rings a bell or bangs
It's
a
the
gong.
gong.
Woo! Cool. What are they going to do? How are we tracking them? How are we tracking the new bill twos we're signing up and saying, hey, that's the kind we like. Let's go find more of those companies. It's so individualized now and it's so kept at arm's length that people aren't diving into that kind of stuff and it hurts the business. If you are able to land quality over quantity, now again, it's all about what company you're building and how you're backed and all that stuff. But quality is always going to win because a quality relationship with a shipper opens doors in other ways for you as well. And just landing new and adding new for adding's sake is a drain on the company's resources and ultimately costs you a ton of money.
All right, I've got a question. This kind of relates to tech sales and I think just business in general. And
Okay,
I'm curious for your take and opinion on this.
cool.
I feel with obviously as much as the tech comes through, that you get a lot of people that the goal of it is to put more time back in their day, right? And
Mhm.
then the whole premise of it is to say you get to spend more time with your customers or to build relationships and those things. But I feel like as this is happening, this is personal opinion,
Go ahead.
I feel that some people are kind of losing the hard work, the work ethic, and there's a little bit of softness. What do you feel?
I think that's the understatement of the century. I think people are as soft as pond water now. I think when they get rejected 5 times, they call it quits for the day. Again, that's why it's so important to have the conversation even before you hire someone of what do you want out of your career? What is going to be enough money for you? What is your goal? Because if your goal is to make 70 grand a year and you tell me you want to come sell, I'm not hiring you. I want the people that realize that it's going to take them years of ground and pound work to learn the business, make mistakes, pick yourself up when you fall down, bounce back from rejection. Because if you're looking at it short term, you're just not going to see the overall value in it. But if you want it to be your career, there's nothing you should spend more time on. Is just being maniacal about your schedule because I would say there is an enormous amount of time wasted on the sales side from guys looking at shippers to decide to call on, coming up with and formulating a reason of why they're calling on them, making sure they have a regular cadence. No one ever sits down and says, hey, the perfect way to reach a customer is X, Y, and Z because every customer is different. So if
Different.
you're not in that space constantly churning, you're going to get left behind for sure. And now there's more competition than ever. Rates have become almost transparent. And it's really going to come down to the service you're able to provide. And that takes an enormous amount of work.
You brought this up on one of our calls, and I think it's really important because for me in my management career, I got into management at a pretty young age,
Me too.
and I struggled at first. I had a really good mentor. He now works for Samsara. His name's Griffin, so I'll shout out Griffin on this one. Um, but it was on solving customer problems and delivering bad news, and
Yeah.
he really helped me out with this because when I was going through it in my earlier days as a manager, this was at Tesla.
Mm-hmm.
It was the hesitance to like, make the call and to not really know what to do. And you've spoken to me about the importance of delivering bad news. Talk about that in freight, because at the end of the day, freight's one of these industries where shit's always going to happen.
This is such a good question, dude. You're so smart. Honestly, there's a couple different facets for it. I will give someone credit on here that I think I already said his name, but I'll say it again because he's an amazing dude. His name is Brian Brenner. He's at RXO now. He's been with Coyote since I think '06 or '07. Um, he was my mentor and my manager for a really long time. And I'll never forget, I lost a massive outsource deal that I was sure I was going to land, right? I was like 2 years into sales. I'm like, oh my God, it's going to change my life. It's going to change this. Holy shit. Last minute, CH Robinson came and cut their prices by 12%. We couldn't compete. And I lost what was a multi-million dollar a year deal for me and for Coyote. And I was just devastated by it. He literally told me, grab your coat. We're in Chicago. Grab your coat. We walked around the corner to a bar, had a couple of beers and a burger. And he's like, dude, if this is going to be your career, this is going to happen so many more times throughout your career. He goes, be sad about it today. Be pissed about it today. Deal with that however you deal with that. But then come back tomorrow and come in ready to kick some more ass, dude. Because this is just one of 1,000 deals you could make.
Yeah.
And I was like, you need that perspective sometimes. You need someone to zoom you out and go, oh, dude, this just is something that happens in business. It's not something I did wrong. It's a learning experience. It's an opportunity. It's all those things. So I would say that's a huge part of it, is just having leadership go through it with you. The other side of it is I would just tell them that there is no replacement for real life education. Going into this job, you should know. I used to say this in every training class at Coyote. We have already factored into our budget. You're going to build loads wrong. You're going to send trucks to the wrong shipper. You're going to screw up an appointment and we're going to have to pay for a layover. You're going to forget to build a load for a customer and they're going to get really pissed at you. The best thing you can do is just be a human. There is only what you can control. You have to control the controllables in a market that you don't control. And one of the things that you can control is how you communicate. So calling, first of all, don't give bad news over an email or over a text. Call them and say, Bill, I am so sorry. This driver's been telling us they're getting closer and closer, and actually they just bamboozled us. I got a recovery truck coming, but it's going to be 2 hours late. Can I buy you guys a pizza? Can I pay for their hourly rate so that you keep them to get that truck loaded? Because I know how important it is to the business, and I'm so sorry it happened. If you do that to a shipper, 90% of the time, you've already diffused them. You've already admitted what you did wrong, told them what you're going to do to fix it, and made a concession to be able to make it right in their eyes. If you do that to them, everybody's blood pressure goes down. Mm-hmm. But if you just message them and say, hey, the truck's going to be late. Do you still want me to send it? Yeah, I would never talk to you again either. Like that's terrible. So, and that goes for internal conversations too. There are people that come and ask for raises. There's people that ask for changes in commission structure. There's people that ask for, something that they feel like they're entitled to. And you just have to sometimes tell them, look, the company's not in a position to be able to participate in that. I believe in you. I want to do that for you in the future, and we'll revisit it down the road. But right now, it's just not something we can make happen. Saying that to a person across a table instead of delivering it over a Zoom or calling them, it just becomes so much more real. And it's a great life lesson for them, for you, and everyone kind of gets to grow together. But it takes vulnerability, man. It takes no one is faster to jump on a grenade than me. Why? Because I know I've dropped them in the past and I've had to jump on them and go, oh, shoot, that is not what I should have said. And I got to go back and repent and say, hey, I'm really sorry this happened. Here's what we were trying to do. And here's where we fell short. But having that level of humility it's really challenging if you don't have the level of confidence in yourself and your product that you're selling.
Well, and I mean, at the end of the day, business is solving problems, right? That's why customers pay you. And I mean, I think for you, you just lean into it. And that I mean, at the end of the day, you see the upside opportunity, because you even talked about earlier with just the fights and, all that there's opportunity in that. And that's what you don't, I think what goes over a lot of people's heads is, because it's so funny. I mean, in brokerage, it used to not really want this, but sometimes when we had a first load that just messed up and it just caused us to get on the phone more, or, just basically display phone, email, everything, just how on top of it you can be. Yep. Automatically you can bridge that connection with the shipper, customer, whoever it may be, just so much faster. And then all of a sudden now you've got a better relationship because you just went through that rocky experience, but at least they saw how you took care of them, and they can really appreciate that. But that's why I think, and I know it seems like such a small question to talk about the importance of bad news or delivering it, but at the end of the day, like that's so much of the upside in this industry, I feel like, because it's just constant.
Well, dude, we work in an industry where there's an aging driver workforce. There's an enormous amount of stupid drivers out there. Accidents happen, weather happens, and people happen, right? You're in a business where you're sending shipments. And what I always try to do is zoom the customer out. Say, hey, I understand that this load didn't go well, and we're doing all the things to fix it. But I just want to bring to light that prior to this call, we were at 99.4% for on time pick and delivery. I think we can both agree that that's really good. We just had an incident, and this is a one time incident. This isn't something that's going to be systemic anymore. It's going to be something that it's going to happen once. We're going to learn from it, get better from it, and then you're not going to have it happen again. And I think putting some kind of a financial repercussion around that as well is also very reassuring to customers, because we did that at LGI. We went back to some customers that we had lost because of rates or service. We went back to them and said, hey, if you give us X amount of loads a month, we will give you, 5%, 10% back on any load that we're late picking up or delivering for. Because we were so confident that we had fixed the issue, it conveys that level of confidence to a shipper. And the only currency the shipper has to trade with is relationship and money.
It's great stuff. I have one more topic I wanted to ask, but I know we're a little bit over time. This has been great. I want to talk about, you brought up psychology. I didn't know you studied psychology, but it all makes sense now to me. I nerd out about this topic. It's really started from, I walked on to a D2 basketball school. I dropped off after a semester. It's just like, I knew it wasn't going to work out, but really for me, like what didn't work up was up here. It's my mental toughness. And I think the thing that I really enjoy about sales is some of like the psychology aspect of working with people, connecting with people, and those things. How important do you think just psychology, mindset, the mental side is for brokers?
85% of the battle.
What interests you so much about it?
So many things. Honestly, probably the biggest part, man, is that I can concretely tell you I would not be in the position I'm in without the experiences that I had at these other companies and the network I've been able to build. And something I talk about very frequently with reps at a company is, how are you internally marketing yourself? Right? I don't think that pursuit never stops. This industry is massive. It's $1 trillion industry that has hundreds of thousands of people in it. How can you create where people feel like when you say you're going to do something, it gets done? You're reliable, you're dependable, you're non-judgmental. You want to learn, you want to be a seeker, you want to continue to challenge yourself and challenge the norms. I think everything comes back to psychology at the end of the day. I grew up dirt poor, and I always just told myself, I don't care what I have to do. I'm going to make more money than my parents ever did. And I was willing to make those sacrifices to get there. But telling me that you want that and showing me that you want that are two totally different things. And that's when psychology comes in. Because I've seen such talented people in this space burn out because they can't beat this fight up here. And this should be the fight that you win every single time, no matter what, because it's a belief in yourself. All you're actually doing is just selling who's on the name, the front of your jersey, but they're only going to work with you because of the name on the back of the jersey. And I think everybody loses sight of that and thinks, oh, they're just working with me because I'm at CH Robinson. They know we're the biggest and the baddest. Nope. People like working with people they like. But if you don't like yourself, you don't like your approach, you don't like your work ethic, you don't like how you go at the game every day, how's anyone else going to respect it? And I think that is a really untalked about part of our game, that this is all mental, man. Sales is a mental slog, and it will beat you up, chew you up, spit you out. But as long as you show back up next day and throw on the headset and get on the phone and start trying to create other connections, That's all you got to do. People just allow other things to get in their way to stop them from doing that work. And that's really when I try to jump in the most. I get so engaged by people like that because I've been in their shoes. I know how they feel. I know how frustrating the job is, but I also know how imperative it is to be balanced between your ears to be able to sell. Because if you're not, you're always going to be firefighting. And firefighting causes drags on execution, enormous time suck, and it costs a lot of money for the company.
Really well said.
Oh, thanks, man.
A lot of times we are tripping ourselves up
For no reason either. We're so hard
Yeah.
on ourselves, man.
I
You
know.
lost a customer, so what? Go find another one. There's thousands.
Yep.
If there was only 4, yeah, I would be like, oh boy, yeah, you're in trouble. But there's not. And I think just even
There's
the little
also
stuff, man. I used to tell the sales team how I used to prospect is I'd go to a Jewel Osco in Chicago and I would just start turning around labels. And if it said Del Monte Foods, I didn't write that one down because I was like, I don't even know how to sell Del Monte. But if I saw a new cracker come out that I really liked and I never heard of it before, I'm going to call them and say, hey, how are you guys getting this stuff to Jewel? And
Yep.
have that conversation. People don't want to do that work anymore. They want to go on Google Maps and they want to continue to zoom in and they go, oh, yeah, look, there's trucks there. It doesn't mean anything. That could be their fleet. It could be a private fleet. It could be any of these options. You just have to continually iterate. And if you don't, and don't try to do things to keep it fun, you're just going to burn out.
Yeah. I feel like so many people think that that's the shortcut for them to get to there, but it's really sometimes the longer route and the stuff that it takes of going to the grocery store and flipping the avocado or the cracker, like whatever it is, and doing that because like that's what's going to have you. You're instantly if Jules the grocery store or like whoever it is, like you're actually calling them with some kind of purpose and some kind of reason, and it's going to click to them because they're going to know, cool, yeah, we do deliver to that specific grocery store or retailer or whoever it is.
That's exactly it.
And it's not even like it's that many extra steps or that much extra time. That's what to me is kind of so crazy about it. Drew and I have like our own little internal thing that we talk about. He just got drafted number 1. We call it Cam Warding. I don't know if you've ever watched Cam Ward play football, but he just like he literally almost like walks in the pocket and he just like sits there.
Yeah, you know,
and it's just like, man, you just got to stay in the pocket, but it's not about rushing, you know. And so many people think that that's what it is, and I think to sum that up, it's just like you think you're taking these shortcuts, but it's actually hurting you.
It's hurting you. It's hurting the future form of yourself too. Because not taking the time to go deep in your profession is the worst time you can spend. Because if you're not going deep and you're not trying to continually learn and challenge yourself, complacency is gonna come into effect. And once that hits you, it's really hard to shake it off. So if you're constantly telling yourself, man, I know a lot, but I want to know more. I have had a lot of experiences, but I want to try more. I want to fail more. Those kinds of things, that's what's encouraging, right? Because no sales rep has ever made a sales call and go, guys, I'm dialing this number right now. They're going to give me 10 loads a day starting tomorrow. Nope, never happened. Sorry. You're going to pick up the phone and ask questions that are going to lead you to an outcome. And whether that outcome is freight or realizing that they only ship small parcel and you can take them off your lead list, either one of those is a win.
It's a win.
But you're not looking at it like a win. One's a win and one's a loss. They both have to be looked at as a win. They just need to have perception and a little context around them.
It's a great point. That is so true. Because yeah, you get then at that point, even for the disqualified one, guess what? You get to focus your time. Yep, you got to focus your time and energy towards the right ones.
Everybody gets the same amount of hours in a day. It's how you use them that is ultimately going to dictate your future.
It's great stuff. John Rivers, the legend, man. Got him here in the flesh. No, this has been great, man. I think, number one, I think with everything that we've gotten to talk about with all the aspects of consulting and the financial side, the asset side, the agency side, tech, sales, and everything, this was a lot of fun to talk about. So I appreciate you taking the time, and hopefully, 6-12 months down the line, we can do a part 2. That'd be fun to, with all the stuff that you're going through right now.
I'm ready next month. I don't think we need to talk for 4 more days.
Yeah,
I do want to shout you out, man. You are an incredibly impressive human being for your
thank you.
age, for your experience, for all the things that you're doing, man. You're operating the right way. I will also say that at the last two companies I was running the revenue side of things, we picked Sales Dash for the reasons why I talked about earlier. I didn't want some massive receptacle for useless information. I didn't want my sales reps having to make 46 clicks for them to log an interaction with a customer. I wanted to be quick hits, clean visibility, and something that we could track. And I think you're bringing that to the market, man. I'm really proud of you. Really, really excited for your future.
I appreciate it. It means a lot. Thank you.
Absolutely.
What's the best way for anybody that's listening and will want to get in touch with you about your consulting services and what you can do to have a conversation with you? What's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
I am terrible at marketing myself. So I would tell you, message me on LinkedIn, uh, John Rivers, JNR at Gmail. You can just send me an email. But if you send me a message on LinkedIn, I'll get back to you that day. I usually just follow up with my contact info, but that's probably the best place for people to start. And yeah, I'm very passionate about getting the help, man. So as many opportunities as I can.
And as somebody that gets to talk with you on a weekly basis, I will say John is 1,000% worth the conversation. And I think we'll challenge you, ask you certain questions. And the one thing I will say is he's not a yes man. And I don't think,
It took a
you
long
know,
time for me not to be one, but yeah, man, it's important. People wanna have a sounding board that has an opinion. So yeah.
very true. No, I really appreciate it. Seriously. It,
Oh,
it, it,
thanks.
it means a lot. And I love your approach and how you go about it. And obviously just your experience and everything. So it's great. But no, John, really appreciate you taking the time. And yeah, excited to get this one released and looking forward to the next one.
Can't wait, buddy. Have a great day.
Cheers. Thanks, John.
Bye bye.
Bye.